Alright, so I'm going to go through and show you how to convert between wavelength and frequency. So this is really not that bad. You just have to make sure to have the formulas and make sure that you're in the correct units. So the first thing I'm going to do, what I always do, is I figure out what formula I need to use. So in this problem, I've got wavelength, and if I'm dealing with hertz, guys, that's going to be frequency. So the formula I need to use is this one. It's your C equals lambda, this is lambda, this is just your wavelength, times your frequency, which is nu. Okay. Now, a couple of things for you to remember. Unit-wise, your units for wavelength have to be in meters at all times. Okay. The units for frequency have to be seconds to the -1, or they can also be in hertz, and the reason why it can be hertz is the same thing as seconds to the -1. Now, the reason why we need these units is because c, which is the speed of light, has units of meters per second. Okay, so this has to be in meters, this has to be seconds to the -1 or hertz in order to be able to use the speed of light, which is 3.0 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. So the first thing you should notice is the fact that in the problem I gave you, you're not in hertz, you're in megahertz. So I first have to convert, and this is just going to be a simple crisscross swoosh. So I give you 93.3 megahertz. And in this problem, guys, always just identify what your base unit is. In this problem, your base unit is going to be hertz, and your prefix is mega. So look up in your chart, look up mega, and you'll see that in 1 megahertz, so I put megahertz on bottom, look up the relationship. In 1 megahertz, and I'll put hertz up top to get into hertz, there are 10 to the 6th hertz. That's the same thing as if I said in 1 megameter, so capital M, little m, there are 10 to the 6th meters. So it's the same thing, I'm just changing the units. So what I'm going to do is take 93.3 and multiply by 10 to the 6th, and you'll get 9.33 times 10 to the 7th hertz. Now remember, hertz are the same thing as saying seconds to the -1, so at this point I can just plug it into my formula here. So I know C is 3.0 times 10 to the 8th. I'm trying to solve for my wavelength, so I'm going to write wavelength right here. And then I'm going to multiply that by 9.33 times 10 to the 7th. And the reason why I can do that now is because I converted into hertz. I'm now in the correct units for frequency, hertz or seconds to the -1. And all I need to do now is divide both sides by my 9.33 times 10 to the 7th. Now, a couple things you need to be careful of. Make sure to include, when you write 9.33, to include the 10 to the 7th. Some of you guys forget that, and it totally changes the problem and the answer, and it's wrong. So be careful with that. The other thing you need to be careful of is when you're dividing in your calculator, since you've got a multiplication sign in the denominator, you need to divide. So I'm going to do 3 times 10 to the 8th. And I'm going to divide that by, put the 9.33 times 10 to the 7th in parentheses, and I get 3.215434084, and that's it. No times 10 to the anything. So I'm going to count sig figs really quickly. 3.0 has 2 sig figs. 9.33 has 3 sig figs. So I want my final answer to have 2. So I'm going to round this it was 3.215. I'm going to just round this to 3.2, that's 2 sig figs, and my units, since I'm looking for wavelength, are going to be in meters. And that's it. So the main things to be careful, guys, write the correct formula, make sure that you're going to have 2 things that you know and 1 thing you don't, okay? And then the other thing, make sure you're in the correct units. Don't let me bamboozle you. Don't let me trick you. I give you megahertz. Don't treat it like hertz. You got to first convert it like I did and then plug it into the formula. And that's it.